Welcome back to your favourite podcast, the Newsroom Mushroom, where we cover random topics such as mushrooms. I'm Tom, and today we have an interesting topic here: the effects of technology on children. Our journalist has spent his valuable time collecting some interviews on the subject, trying to find out how technology really affects our children. Take it away, Tom.
Thank you, Tom. I've been wondering three questions for weeks after I saw a post online. How does technology affect the sleep, attention span, and sleep of children? I've finally been able to answer these questions with some interviews from our country's top psychologists. Find out now with
Kirsty Robinson
from
Christ College.
We have our first few questions here around LED light and its effect on children's sleep and children of different ages.
Well, we know that LED light emits blue lights, and we know that this suppresses the release of melatonin, which is a key hormone associated with sleep. So if children are being exposed to LED light in the evening, it's possible that it'll negatively impact their ability to get quality sleep. The research suggests that LED light can impact sleep for all people. We do know that LED light and screen time can have quite a negative impact on child development for young children, though. So not necessarily their sleep, but their overall development.
Wow, that is fascinating. Learning how LED light affects our country's children's sleep. Next up, we'll have answers regarding how much screen time can affect children's sleep, and how screen time and what type of screen time can affect children's sleep.
Well, we know that for most people, screen time might stimulate their mind, and we know also that LED light can disrupt circadian rhythms, which impacts sleep quality. So, to me, that says that screen time in the evening will have the biggest negative influence on sleep quality and duration. Research shows that children who have long periods of screen time are likely to be more sedentary than other children, and that has a range of negative impacts. So physical aspects like healthy weight, but more broadly it can impact healthy child development, with things like movement, interaction in real life and play are really critical for healthy development.
Are there notable differences in behavioural effects between various types of screen activities like educational apps, social media, and video games?
I haven't read research specifically about that, but I think that maybe things like television aren't so bad because you've got more control and it's just in one place. Whereas things like tablets and smartphones are so much more portable and accessible, and I think that then has an impact on behaviour. I think things like YouTube or social media or Instagram Reels and things like that are likely to have more of an impact on young people than other things, just because you can kind of sit there and without realising you've spent a whole lot of long time being sucked into a whole vortex of information. I think, again, what I was saying about things like YouTube and Instagram Reels and what have you, it's just easier to get sort of sucked into that and then not realise how long you've spent. It's usually information that's very attention grabbing and interesting, and so I think that has the potential to impact behaviour more than other forms of content.
That is definitely an insightful look into how screens can affect our children physically and mentally. Next, we'll have Kirsty talking about how LED light can affect children's brains and their attention spans.
Yeah. The research that I've read indicates that yes, there are some long-term negative impacts on child development, including their brain development, because of excessive screen time. It's associated with a range of different problems which are related to brain development. What's suggested is that too much time spent on a screen and trying to multitask with screen time as well as other things have a negative impact on something called executive functioning, which is related to attention. Also, when we're looking at those really fast-paced or adrenaline-fueled kind of screen activities like gaming. They can impact dopamine and reward pathways in the brain, and both of those things are associated with attention. So it's possible that there are some negative effects and relationships between a lot of screen time and attention.
Our children's attention spans are very important, and it's fascinating to know more about them. Finally, we have Kirsty giving her worst and best free impacts of technology on children.
The three main negative impacts that I think of screen time are the negative impact on sleep. Sleep's so critical for our health and well-being. The other one is around people being more sedentary, so sitting on screens, which has so many different health risks. And the last one is that I think that the more time we spend on screens, the less time we spend in face-to-face in real life interactions. And we know that face-to-face and real life interactions are really critical to positive child development as well as positive human relationships. I think that if children and young people are accessing high quality content, then it can improve education and learning. So access to ebooks or learning apps, especially for those who don't have easy access to those things in other ways. One thing that I think is really good about screens and screen time is providing alternatives for those people with specific learning differences. It means that they can convey their knowledge and understanding in different ways that they might not be able to without some technology. And the third positive impact, I think, is that they do provide entertainment and connection, and I think that's important for people who are socially isolated or people who don't have other easy ways to connect with others or entertain themselves.
Well, listeners, I think that this is one of the most fascinating things ever, and now you know about it in full from our country's top psychologist. Tune back in after the ads to hear about 1080 and its effects in New Zealand.
This is your Suzuki guided meditation as you imagine driving the all-new S-Cross.
Kia ora. My name is Yul Kwan, live from the college newsroom. I am investigating the New Zealand football population and how much it has grown. I investigate this for both genders and multiple age groups. For this topic, I interview three people. Firstly, Lyle Matheson, Community Football Development Officer at Cashmere Technical Football Club and coach for many kids across different ages. Matt Cortesy, head of football at Christ College, and lastly, Adam Sell, coach at Cashman Technical Football Club. This is what I found. Starting off with Lyle. Here is what Lyle had to say about the growth in New Zealand football population.
It is growing increasingly each year with a number of young footballers coming through, not just in the men's space but in the women's space as well, starting from a young age all the way through to older adults. It's been growing each year, and that's just because they're growing in the sport around the globe, and it's becoming a popular sport within New Zealand due to the World Cup, the Women's World Cup, and just other events within football happening around the world.
Now, we will hear his view on what the population of football would look like in New Zealand going forward.
Going forward, I think it will just continue to keep growing, having all types of diversity within the sport. There'll be a different range of, like I said, women football and men in football just continue to keep growing. And it'll just keep growing due to the population and just how popular the sport is and players wanting to become professional footballers, not just within New Zealand but kind of internationally overseas and things like that. So it's just going to keep growing and just become more popular. And so
Lastly, here is his opinion on what New Zealand has to do for young players who want to make a career out of football.
I think there needs to be improvement on green space, so enough area for young footballers to train, access to more facilities, good facilities, not just a park. It has to be somewhere where they can train with quality consistently throughout a week. And then also the coaching needs to be qualified coaches that can help improve our youth within the sport. And if we can improve those areas, the quality of the footballers coming through will just improve and strive on to be professional footballers. Because at the moment, being so far away from everything else, we don't have as many opportunities such as Europe or America.
We have now heard from Lyle and his view on the New Zealand football population, and now we are hearing from Matt Cortesy, head of football at Christ College. Here is his view on the growth and population for football.
Right. One is growth in terms of numbers. Numbers have certainly grown. I've been MIC for 14 years, and the numbers have grown from when I started. It's almost doubled. Right, so that's a significant thing in terms of numbers. But even nationally, football numbers for youth are going up. Right, and a lot of the factors that have contributed to that are things like dropping out of other sports because they see football as a safer option, if that makes sense, and it's a little bit easier to participate in than something like rugby as the stereotypical contrast. So I think there's certainly growth in numbers from that point of view in terms of participation. But I also think there's growth in terms of the players, in terms of things like speed, skill, ability. The players we've got now are way different. They're built differently than they would have been back then. There's a lot more refinement, and all the sports science stuff that's gone into it means that we've got these finely tuned athletes as opposed to just random guys turning up to play a bit of football. So I think there's certainly a much more emphasis on that side of the game as well in terms of growth, physiological growth, but numbers growth. I think there's two ways I would look at that question.
Now that we have heard his opinion on the growth in football players around New Zealand, here is what he thinks about the New Zealand football population and what it would look like going forward into the future.
I think the football population was going to get bigger. I think it will get bigger. And for a number of things, like I said before, in terms of people wanting to participate in something that they can do that's pretty easy, it's low stress, it's low key. But also I think for females, that game's on the rise. I think there's more opportunity for young people now. People like yourself who, if you're a good academic, and you're a good football player, you might find a pathway through an American college or something. Those things are becoming more and more realistic. So I think it's going to grow because there's more opportunity for people to do it and be part of it. And then as that keeps going, I think the population is going to get bigger. The other thing I think about it is I think the population is going to become more and more diverse. I think it's already a pretty diverse football population in terms of the types of people that are playing and the ethnicities and those kind of things that play, but I think it's going to become more and more diverse because it's such an accessible sport, you know.
Lastly, here is Mr. Matt Cortesy say on what he believes that New Zealand have to do for young football players who want to have a career out of football in New Zealand.
New Zealand football has to do more, but we're kind of limited by our size, right? We're limited by the constraints in which we operate. It's way better than it used to be. I guess I said to you before, like the USA pathway for young people is a really good pathway now. That wasn't around when I was at school. Like when I was at school, I would never have had that thought to go and do that pathway. So there are some more opportunities, but I still think people get a bit lost in the fact that only a small percentage are ever going to make it to the big time, right? And so I think people have to be realistic about that actually only a small percentage of people from New Zealand will ever make it in a football career, right? Because we just don't have that platform to build from. Unless, but even in places like England and America, like it's only a small percentage of people. So, yes, young footballers have got good opportunities for football in New Zealand, and there's options beyond New Zealand which are accessible to them, so I think that's good. New Zealand football does have to do more to create better pathways, and they keep chopping and changing some of those pathways, which isn't great. But there's possibility there. But as I say, people have to be a little bit pragmatic and realistic about what we can actually do with the constraints we've got.
We have now spoken with Lyle Matheson and Mr. Matt Cortesy and heard their views on New Zealand football and the population. Now, we will hear from the final person I've interviewed, Adam Searle, coach of the Under-17 Football Academy team at Cashmere Technical Football Club. Firstly, this is his view on the population and its growth for New Zealand football.
Yeah, look, I've been coaching myself for about 8 years now here in New Zealand, and from when I started up to now, I think there's been a large growth spurt within the football community at all levels. That's at senior, youth and junior levels, so yeah.
And lastly, we are now hearing his thoughts on what he thinks the New Zealand football population will look like going forward.
I think, like I say in the last question, the growth, it's growing year on year. So I think the main thing is that we can keep people playing within every age group, every level, and that's the main thing, is getting obviously a big catchment area, everyone playing football, everyone enjoying it, and then we can keep everyone within football. Through that, we'll hopefully grow the game, grow the kind of level we're playing at, and improve football all throughout New Zealand.
I interviewed Lyle Matheson, Mr. Matt Cortesy and Adam Searle about the New Zealand football population in this investigation. With a few questions each, I discovered that their answers proved to be very similar. Based on their answers, we can see that the New Zealand population has increased and will continue to grow even more. This is Yul Kwon, the Newsroom.
Kia ora everybody, my name is Ollie Slavic from the Christ College Newsroom. Today I will be asking the question, is Duke of Edinburgh worth the time and effort? Me and fellow reporter Max Hilliard interviewed students and teachers from the Christ College to find the answer.
The Duke of Edinburgh is an internationally recognised award that requires participants to dedicate time to a physical exercise, learning a skill, and completing service. Established by the late Duke of Edinburgh, Prince Philip, the award has been around for over 60 years and was created to give young men aged 14 to 18 a purpose after the Second World War concluded,
and it has been completed by more than 1,500 people worldwide. The Master in Charge of Duke of Edinburgh Award at Christ's College, Graham Christie, said that it is the world's top non-academic achievement.
So the Duke of Edinburgh is the world's highest non-academic qualification you can have.
This makes the award achievable by almost anyone, as it is not based on grades. He also mentions that the award, which has 3 levels of achievement, bronze, silver, and gold, can be useful for universities.
Certainly a lot of Year 13 students who have registered for the Duke of Edinburgh and haven't finished it, they come to finish it in Year 13 because they found out to get into halls of residence they need extra things, like the Duke of Edinburgh.
He added that it can also help you with a job application, as many employers recognise the work behind it. However, Harry Vaughan, a Year 13 student, said the award was worth the time, but only if you aimed for the gold level, which is the highest standard. Harry decided to not do his Duke of Edinburgh and instead focused on the academic side of Christ's College.
If I did, I'd really commit to getting gold. But if what I did was not much, and then it's basically impossible for me to get gold, so I didn't see much point in doing it at all.
Despite not having the Duke of Edinburgh, Harry managed to become a prefect and achieved the Christ's College diploma. At Christ's College, the criteria for the diploma is very similar to that of the Duke of Edinburgh, so a lot of the activities you log for DOE, you can also log for your diploma. For example, if you do 13 hours of service, you can log those hours for Duke of Edinburgh and use them to complete your community service for your silver diploma. This is an efficient use of time and has double the benefits. The Duke of Edinburgh Award can be great for students if you have the time and resources. It could be harder to accomplish if you didn't have access to proper stuff such as sport coaches or equipment for your skill. This could give kids who are born better off an advantage with completing the award. In conclusion, the Duke of Edinburgh Award is a prestigious achievement that can help you hone your skills and dedication. It can also be beneficial when applying for jobs or universities. However, the commitment required and access to resources can make it challenging. Ultimately, whether it is worth it depends on the individual's determination and goals. Do you think it's worth it?